in many contexts, it's people's perspective that lets them down in life. And the problem is that most people don't understand what their perspective is because they don't understand the difference between focus and perspective. So in this video, I want to help you to understand the three ways in which we see. Because seeing is very different from perceiving. All right, are you following on? Is this okay? And before we really unpack this idea, I want to share with you a quote by none other than Mr. Milton H. Erickson, who has been referred to in recent years as one of the forefathers of modern hypnotherapy. Milton Erickson once suggested that every person's map of the world is as unique as their own thumbprint. No two people understand the same phenomena the same way. Therefore, strive to understand. Now, there's so much in this, and if you were to begin to just unpack this for yourself, what might you draw from this one idea? First and foremost, every person's map of the world is as unique as their thumbprint. So if we were just to unpack this just for a moment, think about what a map is. A map is kind of like a diagram of some actual terrain. But a map is not the terrain within itself. So say, for example, you were to go hiking, or you were to go for a hill walk or something like this. You might have a map and a compass if you're old school like me and you're not using a GPS. And what your map's going to show you is going to show you contour lines. It's going to show you what's land, what's water. It's going to show you the nooks and crannies of the land, but it's not going to show you all the specific details. So when it comes to you actually deploying and being out there on your travels, what your map's not going to inform you of is any ditches, any potholes, any marshy land. It's not going to show you if there's any fences, if there's fields with bulls in or anything like this, because the map is not the territory, right? You've got to understand that every single person's map of the world is as unique as their thumbprint. The way in which we look at life is going to be different for all of us. No two people understand the same phenomenon in the same way. And this is one distinction that I want to make right now, because how I've come to understand hypnotherapy over the last 10 to 12 years is most likely going to be completely contrastive to how Milton H. Erickson understood hypnotherapy around about 60 years ago. So I wanted just to explain this to you first and foremost to help you understand how it is that you see life. Because the first way in which we see life is on a head level, in a rational way. Some people cannot see beyond their own thoughts, their own expectations, their own beliefs, their own worldviews. Have you ever heard the saying, some people just can't see eye to eye? Well, that's actually a complete falsity. It's not that people cannot see eye to eye. It's just that some people will not even acknowledge that we all just see things differently. Here's the thing. If you have ever wondered how it is that you can enhance and improve the quality of your relationships, well, all that you ever need to do is step outside of your head and become more interested in other people's agendas than what you are in promoting your own. Now, some people will struggle with this in life. Why? Because they're so immersed in the way in which they see things on a rational level. Have you ever known anyone, when you engage in conversation with them and you ask them how they are, and then they're just going to offload their every worry, their every woe, their relationship problems, their money problems, their concerns, their fears, their insecurities, their doubts, and then you end up wishing that you just never asked. All right, well, this is people who operate on a rational head level. Sometimes people who operate on a rational head level can be seen and experienced by others as being quite prideful, quite arrogant, quite big-headed. Some people take and draw a lot of confidence from their knowledge in life. Some academics, scholars, scientists, and historically hypnotherapy has been referred to as a partial science. Other people would say that it isn't. Either way, it's irrelevant, especially if we take these principles, practices, enhance our own lives first and foremost, and then in turn go on to play a part in enhancing the lives of others. What many people don't understand is that the map is not the territory. Every person's map of the world is as unique as their thumbprint. How we see things isn't always the way in which things are. To help you understand this, I want to quickly share with you a story. Stories are a fantastic means through which we can illustrate points and inform people on an unconscious level by just simply reminding them of things that they actually already understand, but they just may have perhaps forgot. There was a young man with his 2 children who went to a train station one day to get on a train. Now, as the train pulled into the station, the man and the 2 young children got on. The man sat down, and the 2 young children were quite high energy this day. They were running up and down the aisle of the train, playing with toys. There was an elderly gentleman sitting at the top of the same carriage. He was one of those business types. He was sitting with his bowler cap, and within 4 to 5 minutes, the man had become distracted by these 2 young children running up and down the aisle of the train. So much so, he began to get quite frustrated. He was thinking to himself, who does this man think that he is? Look at the caliber of his parenting skills. He's not a particularly aware parent. He is just not aware of anyone else on this train apart from himself. In fact, I'm going to take it upon myself to go up to this man and correct him of his ways. This man is wrong. He's irresponsible. He should know better, and it's my job to inform him. So, as the story went, the man stood up, walked up the aisle of the train where he approached this man who was sitting there, and he went on to give him a piece of his mind. Young man, who do you think you are? Your children are running up and down this aisle, completely out of control. Until he noticed that the man's eyes were red. He had tears streaming down his face, and it triggered something in his heart. The man who was sitting there, he just, sir, I'm so sorry. Listen, I will do my best to control my son and daughter. We've actually just come from their mum's funeral, my wife's. I don't know if this is even sunk in yet. I don't know if they're even aware what this actually means. I'm sorry. I've never been in this position before. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I'll do my best. Now tell me, how do you think that business-type man felt upon being presented with the truth of the situation? All right, sometimes we intuitively get things very, very wrong. Just because we see something doesn't mean that something is. Just because we think something doesn't mean that something is. Just because we believe something does not mean that something is. Truth is not thought. Truth is not belief. Truth is not worldview. Truth is not perspective. The truth is what sets people free from all of the above. So, if I was to ask you just for a moment, when was the last time that you emotionally or rationally reacted or responded to a circumstance or a situation or a person because of the way in which you saw things? Could you identify a time in your own life where you perhaps might have arrived at the wrong end of the stick? You might have gotten things wrong, because many people do. And when we are not aware that the way in which we see things isn't always the way in which things are, we can end up unknowingly damaging our relationships, our careers, making unwise financial decisions, which then goes on to impact us emotionally in an equally disturbing way. So, one way in which we see things is through our head, through our eyes, on a rational level, where we arrive at conclusions, we make assumptions, we have expectations, we are God, if you like. The way that we see things is the way that things are, and we are, of course, always right. Some people, again, would refer to this as arrogance and pride, but we each get to decide on which level we operate out of in life. The second way in which we see is through our heart's eye. Now, if you've never experienced life through the heart, you might be struggling with this. Again, you might be resisting this message saying, yes, but the heart is just an organ. Yes, but the heart is more than an organ, isn't it? Where does love come from? Where does compassion come from? Where does patience come from? Where does integrity come from? It comes from the heart, doesn't it? Can we explain that one? Can we explain love on a rational level? We're going to struggle, aren't we? There's some academics who might have attempted this at some point in the past, but you can't explain love on a rational, intellectual level. Love's a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of the head. When we see that people are hurting in life, we're moved emotionally, aren't we? On a heart level, not on a head level, right? It's only when we become aware of the ways in which we're impacting other people, like really aware, when we stop and actually see, that we become more inclined to change our ways. So we experience life emotionally on a heart level. We then see life intuitively. Intuition is more about establishing what's true in any given moment in time. All right, say for example, if that had been me, that gentleman, that business type guy on the train, and bear in mind, none of us are perfect. We can all arrive at incorrect assumptions sometimes. But if you think about what more of an intuitive response to a situation like this would look like, if the businessman had to say something, if he was perhaps intuitively aware, he might have already noticed the tears that were flowing from this young man's eyes, and he could have walked up and said, "Sir, I tell you, I can see that you're going something. How about take the children, go and buy them a chocolate bar, get them a bar of fritters, or would you like someone to speak to right now?" What I'm saying is life never needs to be the way that we think it needs to be, right? We always have options available to us. If we see only one approach that we could take to a circumstance or a situation or a relationship, there's always going to be something that we don't see, all right? And it's only when we become able and willing to step out of our minds, out of our emotions, and out of our rational thoughts, that we become better able to step into our intuitive way of being. And one thing I'm going to guarantee you right now, when we start living life and experiencing life in this intuitive way, we become free from thought, free from emotion, and better versed to see what's actually going on. Therefore, then in turn, begin offering far more value to those other people that we have in our lives on a personal, on a social, or on a professional level. Every person's map of the world is as unique as their thumbprint. No two people understand the same phenomena in the same way. Where I understand what I understand, you understand what you understand. Here's the thing, you might have a good understanding of hypnotherapy right now, but one thing I will guarantee you is that you don't understand hypnotherapy the same way that I do, which means that we can both just simply strive to understand each other.